guess I'm never joining the Marine Corps. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm checking off one of the movies on the 1001 movies you must see before you die list with Full Metal Jacket. To be totally honest, I wasn't sure how much I was going to actually enjoy this movie. I do like a war movie from time to time, but I can be a little bit iffy with Stanley Kubrick's movies, even though the only one I've actually seen is A Clockwork Orange. Although that could be clouded by the fact that the first time I watched it, we had crammed like 15 people into a tiny dorm room and were shoving pizza in our faces at 3 in the morning during my freshman year of college. When I watched it again a couple years later, while considering it for a film theory paper, I found it very disturbing and creepy. Although I know that's kind of Kubrick's style to be a little bit creepy and weird, but I did really enjoy this extreme look at the armed forces that we don't get in movies nowadays, especially with how PC everyone has to be. And I really liked the bits of comedy sprinkled in throughout. Full Metal Jacket stars Matthew Modine, Vincent D'Onofrio, and R. Lee Ermey, just to name a few, and was directed and co-written by Stanley Kubrick. It follows Matthew Modine's character JT Joker Davis as he goes through the intense Marine Corps training and then into combat as a field reporter during the Vietnam War. We actually get like a 2-page spread in the book, which is pretty cool because I really love this picture. It's pretty much sums up the movie, at least like the second and third act of the movie for the most part. The book leads off with the description of a scene and a quote of narration from the 1975 Stanley Kubrick film Barry Lyndon that's very reminiscent of how Joker's character does a bit of narration in Full Metal Jacket. The book goes on to say that Stanley Kubrick built Full Metal Jacket upon Barry Lyndon and other Vietnam War era films like Platoon and Apocalypse Now that were very popular during this time. Full Metal Jacket is also based on the autobiographical novel The Short-Timers by Gustav Hasford, who has a co-writing credit on this movie as well. The rest of the page goes on to give some little insights and summaries of the movie that I will talk about later. Yet again, I picked another very auteur filmmaker. Like Wes Anderson, Stanley Kubrick has a very specific style when he makes his films. Kubrick is very meticulous when it comes to his films. Everything he does is framed perfectly and with a purpose. Like the tracking shot where Sergeant Hartman is walking around the barracks and introducing himself to the new privates. I'm pretty sure, knowing the way Kubrick films and his style of filmmaking, he did this seamless take at least 10 times, probably more. And the opening scene where the new Marine recruits are getting their heads shaved to the song Hello Vietnam was very reminiscent to me of when Alex and his droogs were beating up the writer and his wife to Singin' in the Rain in A Clockwork Orange. In both movies, the music and the cuts in the scene fit very perfectly together, not just in style and tone, but also the music that was fitting of that era, of the era represented in that time period, or the time period represented in that movie, I guess. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. One thing I think Kubrick did very well was make the scenes where Sergeant Hartman is yelling and screaming at the troops, which is anytime he's on screen pretty much, very jarring when compared next to just the talking scenes, especially in the conversations where Private Pyle and Private Joker are in the barracks talking, and Pyle is very upset that everyone's mad at him, and Joker's telling him that he keeps messing up and he needs to stop messing up, and that's why everyone's mad at him. It just shows the very extreme side of the Marine Corps that you don't really get to see in most any other movies. And these jarring training scenes with the gentle talking moments are mirrored very nicely from the first act to the third act when they're in battle basically, and it's just gunfire from the sniper and then kind of silent bits as they're trying to figure out where the sniper is. Then once someone goes back into the field, the sniper hits them again, and it's just constant back and forth. I think it's a very nice mirror image, and also shows how Sergeant Hartman really trained the new recruits to be ready for the battlefield. In my mind, I guess. That's probably not the right answer or the way that Kubrick was intending it, but that's kind of how I see it. And once Private Joker gets to Vietnam and starts interacting with the other Marines, it shows a very different side to the armed forces and the war in general than you ever really get to see in other Vietnam era movies. except for the ones that were made in like the 70s and 80s. In Full Metal Jacket, the Marines really think that what they're doing is helping the Vietnamese people achieve freedom, and that they're doing this for the right reasons, and it's what they're born to do, what they're meant to do, and they don't really see the bigger picture. It was just drilled into them in boot camp that they're killing machines and that they have to do this and that it's the right thing and their purpose, and they really actually enjoy doing this. You see the look of joy on their faces, and you really see it in that scene where Mother is posing next to the dead Vietnamese soldier and wants Rafterman to take a photo of him and is saying that this is his buddy and that they're throwing him a party and all of that stuff. It's just very creepy, and it really shows how much they actually enjoy doing what they're doing. They even go into it later on when they're doing the on-camera interviews, where you really see how much the Marines actually enjoy killing these Vietnamese soldiers, killing regular Vietnamese civilians even, just because they think they're giving the Vietnamese people their freedom. During the scene when the news crew is filming all of the Marines in the field, Joker brags about being on the field even though he's just a news reporter and wanting to be the first one on his block with a kill, and he can't even really come to do it when he's faced up against the sniper later on. He kind of fumbles and can't get his gun to fire. He kind of jams it up, and it's only when Mother points out while the sniper is laying on the ground begging for them to kill her that she's the one that killed his best friend, and there's really no other friends left for Joker, so he kind of builds up his courage and kills her, which you can see kind of kills him a little on the inside. But you see him in the very next scene happily singing the Mickey Mouse Club song with the other Marines as they march through a field of burning buildings. But I guess that's kind of just him closing off that moment in time in his brain. But that Mickey Mouse Club scene is probably the creepiest scene to me, because the juxtaposition of them singing this happy marching tune about a character that is so beloved by many while they're marching through a field of burning buildings kind of just has this really eerie ring, like they don't really understand or know fully what they've been doing this entire time.
We play fair and we work hard and we're in harmony. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E, Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse! Mickey Mouse! Mickey Mouse! Forever let us hold our banner high, 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 high. Boys and girls from far and near, you're welcome as can be. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E.
So now I want to talk about two of my favorite characters who really didn't get that much screen time because they were only in the first act of the film, and that's Arlie Ermey as Sergeant Hartman and Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Pyle. I'm first going to talk about Vincent D'Onofrio as Private Pyle and that super creepy bathroom scene that was at the end, like the very end of the first act. A lot of people know Vincent D'Onofrio for the most part, at least I really could recognize him out of anywhere as the cockroach guy, cockroach alien in Men in Black. And up until the bathroom scene in this movie, I really did not recognize him as that at all. He is such a chameleon. He looks different in most every single movie he does. But when he's staring down Sergeant Hartman and Private Joker, you can see this look on his face as he's just kind of glaring down the camera. But that's beside the point. The bathroom scene is such a pivotal scene in this movie because it really kind of shows just how hard the boot camp and training can be on the Marines in the end, especially when there's a recruit like Pyle who is kind of overweight, is a big screw up, and nobody really likes him because he messes up and everyone else gets punished. But it really just puts a strain on them and affects them so deeply that they feel like this switch just goes off in their brain. But in this case, Pyle only really kills his torturer, pretty much, which is Sergeant Hartman, and then himself, kind of so he can put himself out of his misery. And then Arlie Ermey is so good. I loved him as Sergeant Hartman. He's a stereotypical drill sergeant, but there's something just so horribly perfect about him as this drill sergeant that is both scary and comical and perfect all at the same time. And he was definitely my favorite character. A couple fun facts about R. Lee Ermey's performance in Full Metal Jacket. This was only his 5th acting role after a couple other small army roles in other movies, including an uncredited role in Apocalypse Now, and a couple other fun facts about that, but I'll leave those for when I cover Apocalypse Now. He was also nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama, which he totally deserved, and it would have been awesome if he won, but Sean Connery won for The Untouchables. Plus, he was also up against Richard Dreyfuss, Rob Lowe, and Morgan freaking Freeman. And now for my personal favorite part of this series, where we get to look at a famous line or scene from the movie. Which there are so many iconic lines and scenes in this movie that I had to narrow it down to just one, and it was very difficult. I picked probably my favorite scene in the entire movie, where we are introduced to Sergeant Hartman. So the scene you're about to see is not the scene that I have picked and that I want to show, because the scene that I did pick got a copyright claim on it from Empire because their song Glow Intro Getting Money or whatever basically took the entire first scene of Full Metal Jacket and put some effects on it and is basically copyright claiming my video. So to avoid that, I'm just going to do this very famous line from the scene where Sergeant Hartman is inspecting everyone's general hygiene, and he finds that Private Pyle's footlocker is unlocked, and this is what he says.
Jesus H. Christ.
That's all I have for Full Metal Jacket. As always, these are just my opinions, and I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. Have you seen Full Metal Jacket, and what did you think of it? If you want to know which films I have seen so far, or just keep up with my progress in general, there's a link to a Google Doc in the description down below with all the movies I have seen on the list so far. For the next movie, I was seriously considering going with Good Morning Vietnam, but I wanted to save Robin Williams for another time, and I didn't want to go through half of the Vietnam War movies in one go. So instead, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking about No Country for Old Men. Thank you so much for watching, whoever you are. I really appreciate you. Let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I post new videos every Tuesday talking about movies, TV shows, filmmaking, other nerdy fun stuff, sometimes my life, not too often. And every other Wednesday, I check off another one of the movies on the 1001 Movies You Must Watch Before You Die list. And most every Friday, I do a new movie review, so stick around and I will see you guys later. Bye!